The IHS Jane's Intelligence Briefing Programme will consist of approximately 40 events during 2017 and is available to all customers of Jane's Intelligence Centre and module products, including the market forecast products. Today we are joined by Colin Strack from IHS Jane's Country Risk, who is the Senior Analyst for the Middle East and North Africa region. Also with us is John Sneller, Aviation Manager for IHS Jane's, and Ben Goodlad, the Principal Weapons Analyst and Lead Forecasting Analyst for the Weapons Portfolio. Together they will present a session entitled Interdicting ISIS, Employment of Air-Launched Weapons in Syria and Iraq. And this is a conflict that's had a lot of coverage in the media, but today we'll examine the air campaign, the defences, impact of the airstrikes, the platforms used, and finally the air-launched weapons that have been employed by the various forces involved in the campaign in both countries.
So the map you can see here, that shows our latest assessment of the Islamic State's control gains and losses since 2015. The dark area in the center, that's the territory that the Islamic State has controlled without changes since January 2015. The red areas are Islamic State losses, the darker ones are the 2015 losses, and the lighter red areas are the 2016 losses. And then we've got some green areas which are Islamic State gains, particularly around Palmyra and Deir ez-Zor in Syria. So overall we're looking at a loss of 34% of their territory since mid-2015. That's now down to just over 60,000 square kilometers, which is about the same size as Latvia or the US state of West Virginia. What we've got on this slide is a map showing the locations of US airstrikes in 2016. Now it's worth noting that these are not the official figures, but these are drawn from reports on local media and social media. That's got some disadvantages, some advantages, but basically it allows us to geocode them more accurately. And also when we look at the Russian airstrikes in a minute, it's much better to use the kind of independent figures than the official figures.
And if we now move to the noisier, faster and smaller versions, I've just put together a sort of montage here of the different types of players, and you'll see here the different types of technologies that are being used in Syria and Iraq. And as I noted in the infographic on the first of my slides, all of the players, all of the contributing nations are using attack assets against ISIS and other groups, as Colin mentioned earlier. So
now that I've examined some of the weapons being used, I'm now going to focus on their employment. For this, I'm going to focus on the UK, with the Ministry of Defence releasing weekly updates detailing aircraft, targets and weapons used. This has been combined with information from the UK's House of Commons Select Committee report on UK operations in Syria and Iraq, which provides figures from September 2014 to August 2016. On the left, we have the types of munitions expended during operations from September 2014 to August 2016, whilst on the right, we have the munitions used from September 2016 to the 11th of January 2017, based on the weekly airstrike reports that have been released. A total of 1,325 Paveway 4 munitions were used from September 2014 through to August 2016, for the majority of the weapons used during this period. A high number of Hellfire missiles have also been used, reflecting the high use of the RAF Reaper UAV. As you can see on the right, since September 2016, the proportion of Hellfire and GBU-12 munitions has increased, demonstrating the increased use of Reaper over towns such as Mosul. Trying to engage key Islamic State assets. Islamic State has tried to camouflage a lot of their installations, so their mortar positions and artillery, however the ISR assets being used have been able to easily identify and engage the weapon systems. Even when the weather was bad at the start of January, the use of enhanced Paveway and Paveway 4 has meant that the RAF could engage blind, working with troops on the ground to identify the target, but the cloud cover of the target did not prevent operations from taking place. What we can see on the right-hand side of the screen is just an example of a tornado for airstrike against the Islamic State MBT that took place at the end of November. On the top screen, you can see the tank just before the strike of a brimstone missile that's coming through from the right-hand side. I've circled it for ease of recognition, but it is the dark shape that you can see circled on the right-hand side of the picture. The image below that shows the main battle tank once the smoke and explosion has cleared, and as you can see, it is very much a wreckage, and that is that tank destroyed. It isn't known whether that tank was manned. It was probably a static target at the time, but that is a capability that Islamic State will no longer have, and that is armour that can no longer be deployed.
We've also seen a huge array of weaponry being used against Islamic State, and the target set has been literally from main battle tanks through to hardened buildings and troops in the open. So it is the full availability of the potential targets that have been engaged. And finally, the airstrikes have intensified, as we've seen, as the coalition has been seeking to dislodge Islamic State from Mosul and Raqqa. So the campaign has ramped up within those centres of population and those centres of governance within Islamic State. So a copy of the slides with a simultaneous audio recording of the presentation will be made available to all subscribers of our intelligence centres, modules and market forecast products. These will be uploaded to the James customer area by the end of tomorrow. We also look forward to welcoming you to future online briefings. Our next briefing will be on frigates on the front line, naval operations and procurement, which will be taking place on Thursday, the 26th of January at 1500 hours in the UK, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the US.